I would like you to fasten your seatbelts because we are about to take off.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board. It's K Global, everything aviation.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, this is K Global, where we talk everything aviation. In previous episodes, we'll be talking about careers in aviation, and we've categorized them into air crew, maintenance and planning, and also ground crew. Today, I would actually start from the ground category, and I'll be talking about the flight dispatcher. But before I continue, I want you to click the like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. So flight dispatchers, they are popularly also called ground operations officers. The flight dispatchers have very crucial responsibilities in the aviation industry, and they are also licensed, just like the pilots, the aircraft engineers, the cabin crew, and the rest I've mentioned so far. So what do they actually do? So the flight dispatchers have some core responsibilities that they carry out before every flight and even after every flight. So first of all, one of their responsibilities are planning the flight, its flight documents, or you call it flight packs. So how do they plan these flights? So one of the requirements that they do, or one of the things they do under planning the flight, is getting available fuel options. So let's say the aircraft is in a base here in Lagos, they would have to source for the fueling options for the aircraft, and also even to source for fueling option before the aircraft leaves the base. So if, for example, an aircraft is going from Lagos to Abuja, they would have sourced for a fueling option in Lagos here, and also a fueling option from Abuja. Okay, so depending on the operations of the aircraft, they are the ones with that responsibility. So before the aircraft even leaves Abuja, they already know who will refuel the aircraft from Lagos. Also, in planning the flights, what they also do is they try to check every requirement that is needed to go into a particular country or airport. So for example, maybe they are going from Nigeria to any other country in West Africa, and they might be permissions or whatever necessary process you need to go through. They actually sort every requirement to go into a particular country or airport. I will give you an example. For maybe an helicopter flight, and you want to go, let's say, from Nigeria to another West African country, and you need to go past 2-3 West African countries, because the helicopters don't go so high. There is also going to be requirements and permission to fly through a certain airspace in this country before you get to this country, So it's also part of the job to get everything sorted, which is part of planning the flight and its flight documentation. So they also check for weather reports, which is the meter and TAF. So what is meter? METAR, and TAF, TAF. So meter, I'm going to explain what meter is in aviation. In aviation, meter stands for Meteorological Aerodrome Report, which is a coded message providing the current weather condition at a specific airport. While the TAF, which stands for the Terminal Aerodrome Forecast, is a detailed forecast of expected weather conditions at an airport over a set period of time, usually between 24 to 30 hours ahead of the flight. So this is part of also what they get to plan a flight. Then also, another thing they do in planning the flights or getting the flight documents is they check for NOTAMs. NOTAMs are essential before every flight. NOTAMs means notice to airmen, but that was what it meant. Then I think under Biden, it was changed by FAA, the Federal Airport Authority in USA, to notice to emissions because of the what are we going to call it, the gender bias because it's airmen. So, but Trump had come in and changed it back from notice to air missions to notice to airmen. So what does this NOTAM do? This NOTAM tells the pilot and the flight dispatcher now that the airport, there are situations around a particular airport. For example, either if the airport has a runway issue, or the airport has an issue on the taxiway, or there's an ILS installation, ILS instrument landing system installation or maintenance, or the airspace is closed, or there are potholes, on the runway. Yes, there are potholes on the runway, etc. So all these things are what the NOTAMs give you before every flight, and this is part of what the dispatcher does in planning flight. Also, what they do is they also prepare navigational logs. So this is what informs the pilots that if you're traveling from point A to point B, we take probably an hour. Also, this navigational logs helps in routing. That means it also help you say, okay, this routing will help you spend less duration in flying instead of taking this particular time. So pilot puts this navigational log data into the FMS. FMS means the flight management system, which causes the avionics display to display a map plots in which the pilots will use at departure. So also another thing they do in planning their flights is also to check for all aircraft documents, that if these aircraft documents are intact and current. There are compulsorily some aircraft documents that need to be taken on board the aircraft, like the certificate of airworthiness, the noise certificate, the radio certificate, the certificate of registration, and the insurance of the aircraft. All these are documents that compulsory has to be on board, and it's the duty of the flight dispatcher to also check its flight documents while planning its flight. Another core responsibility is ensuring if the pilots can actually execute the flight by checking their type ratings, their CRMs, which is crew resource management, maybe certification, their firefighting certification, their license expirations, the pilot's medicals. Check if everything is up to date. They are more like also vetting the pilots that will execute the flight. So since they dispatch the flight, they need to know that, okay, this pilot is qualified to execute this flight. Also, another core responsibilities of the flight dispatchers are they make ATC flight plans, and most of the nav log details that I mentioned earlier, they are used in this ATC flight plan. Also, there's a state the color of the aircraft, the emergency equipment on the aircraft for search and rescue purposes. So these are all what they give to the air traffic control, the ATC, for their flight plans. Also, another core responsibility is that they prepare flight manifest. So what does a manifest mean? The manifest refers to a detailed document listing all passengers and cargo on the flight, including their names, their seat numbers, and sometimes additional information like special needs or dietary restrictions, which is crucial for the flight dispatcher to ensure proper weight and balance calculations for the aircraft during flight planning. Essentially, this manifest is just like a passenger and cargo list for a specific flight, and that is part of the core responsibilities of a flight dispatcher. Also, one of the core responsibilities of a flight dispatcher is to ensure and calculate the taxiing off weight, the takeoff weight, and the landing weight of the aircraft, and not just calculate, and to ensure that they are within regulated values. So these documents are independent from one another, but they are actually vital for flight dispatch. How to become a flight dispatcher? So how to become a flight dispatcher? Obviously, you would, since I've mentioned earlier that a flight dispatcher is a licensed professional, it means you have to go to an approved training organization. If you have been listening to K Global so far, I've been mentioning ATOs, approved training organizations. These are very, very vital terminologies you actually need to know if you have been following this channel. So List of approved training organizations you can go to become a flight dispatcher is, once again, Nigeria College of Aviation Technology Zaria, Aero Consult in Lagos, Javi Aviation, also in Lagos, Landover Business School in Lagos, I think also Universal School of Aviation. So these are schools I can recommend that are approved to train you to become a licensed flight dispatcher. So actually, while in training, the flight dispatcher course is actually broken into two parts. But you have to have the two parts to now overall have the license. The first is the basic training, which is about 3 months, and the advanced training, which is also about 3 months. So in total, it's a 6-month training with a compulsory OJT. OJT means on-the-job training. Then you sit for your NCA exams and you will get your license. So also in becoming a flight dispatcher, there's actually by law in the Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulations 2023 that you have to be at least 21 years of age as at the time you are getting the license. So this is something you need to note. So what are the rankings in becoming what are the rankings in flight dispatching? Like the way I mentioned for pilots, the rankings and engineers and cabin crew. For flight dispatcher, there are really no rankings, or I won't say no real career growth, but the career growth here is basically by experience. So just experience and the number of years you spent in the industry. So you can have a type course for familiarization with the aircraft you are particularly working on, but this type course is not mandatory for a flight dispatcher. That means it's not going to be endorsed on your license, unlike the pilots or the engineers or the cabin crews. So what's the average pay of a flight dispatcher? It ranges usually from as low as 200,000 to about 1.5 million. It's a range anyways. So amongst international airlines, actually, a dispatcher earns about 75% of a captain's salary. Unlike Nigeria here, it is not so. So amongst international airliners, dispatchers are very, very, very senior aviators. Actually, they discuss directly with the captain. They liaise with the captain. That is when they are developing the flight plans and everything. They discuss with the captain. In fact, the dispatcher has the same knowledge test base with a captain, just that the dispatcher doesn't fly. So what are the opportunities that a flight dispatcher can have? Apart from just being a dispatcher for an airline, other opportunities a flight dispatcher can have is that a flight dispatcher can become a flight ground school instructor if he goes to do more trainings, because like I said, he has almost the same knowledge test base with the captain. Also, a flight dispatcher can become an airline station manager, and also can become a grounds operation inspector with the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority. So as a flight dispatcher, remember, you have to be very good with calculations. You have to be very, very smart. You have to be up and doing. It's a very, very important role and task. Actually, the myth in Nigeria is that dispatchers are usually looked down, and no one really talks about them. But the truth is, to debunk that myth, no airline can effectively work without a dispatcher. Dispatchers are crucial. They are licensed professionals. Funny enough, a dispatcher literally solves your ground operations problem. So being a dispatcher as an aviator, it's a very, very good career to go into. So I believe you've learned basically what you need to know about being a flight dispatcher. So in my next episode, I will be talking about the air traffic controllers, which is also a licensed professional amongst the ground operations. So I will urge you again to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and please share the videos to young persons, friends, family members, or colleagues who you feel might be interested with learning about aviation and careers in aviation. Till I see you again next time. God bless.
K Global, everything aviation.